You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, I'm Joe Heath.
I'm Toni Heath.
And this is the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon.
Listen to our theme song.
Today we're going to be talking about the first serial of the 12th season of Doctor Who and the first serial of the 4th Doctor, Robot!
I love a good robot.
Which consists of 4 episodes that aired from December 28th, 1974 to January 18th, 1975.
True facts!
And I'd like to give a special shout out to Matt Golden of mgoldentumbles.tumblr.com.
Hey, thanks, Matt.
Thank you for getting us these episodes.
Thank you for being a friend.
Today we have a returning special guest.
Who is it?
I feel like we haven't had this barrel of legs on in a very long time. Ben Paddon!
Woo!
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
How you doing?
It's good. I'm decent. I'm alive. I don't have working limbs, but I have limbs. They're not always decorative. Sometimes they function in the way in which they were designed by aliens, I assume. I assume that we were put here by aliens. That's true. No, it's not. This is nonsense. This is the worst. Can I have a do-over? This is wretched.
No!
Nope.
Ah, damn it.
Own it.
Damn it. Now everyone thinks I think that we were put here by aliens.
Well, that's what you think, so that's what we put out to the world.
Curses.
We're doing the expose on Ben Paddon.
This entire podcast has been an elaborate sting operation to get me to let my guard down enough to talk about my weird alien conspiracy theories.
And fetishes.
And fetishes, yes. We've discussed fetishes as is on the show before, right? I do another podcast with my friend Molly called The Life Toyetic with Ben and Molly, which is the full title. That's not just me saying my name again and her name because I'm a narcissist. It's a podcast about movies about toys. So we watch movies that are based on a toy or a video game that are designed to sell that product. And this is largely me just plugging the podcast at this point, thelifetoyetic.com. At this point, we've recorded the first 5 episodes, and there are probably more at the point that this episode of the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon is going out. But one of the things we've discovered is that the bulk of kids' movies are incredibly kinky. I don't know if you guys have listened to my podcast. I barely listen to it, and I edit the thing. There's so much, like, the first episode we did was DreamWorks Trolls. Anna Kendrick, Justin Timberlake, Russell Brand, and a couple of other people whose names I do not remember because they are YouTubers and thus aren't real people. I say that as a YouTuber. But there's so much kink in this first Trolls movie. It's harrowing to watch, because you know that young minds are watching this and are just having, like, it's a fireworks display of sexual awakening going off in a child's brain. DreamWorks, having seen a lot of DreamWorks movies, is basically a kink factory.
I do listen to your podcast, by the way. Your Super Mario Brothers movie episode inspired me and a group of friends to read through the first draft of the Super Mario Brothers movie and act it out. So
It's about what you'd expect.
And may I be the first to say, oh no.
No, I said it first in my head multiple times. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to yourself? But we're going to read another draft on my
We're
birthday.
going to do it again.
And you're invited.
That's very exciting.
I want to make one other quick thing. You're talking about, we've talked about fetishes on this show before.
Oh no. Oh, are you about to kink shame me? Because I have receipts here for you, my friend.
I'm not going to king shame you. Previous guest Brian Snape has his own podcast. So I've been listening to his podcast, Harry Sullivan is an Imbecile, and he mentions being on our podcast, and his co-host was like, yeah, I listened to that. You guys say come way more often than we do.
Yes, we do.
And I can't help but feel like you set the precedent.
I don't like the implication that I'm like a sexual Sam Beckett, quantum leaping from podcast to podcast, making it saucier and then leaping out. Each time hoping that the next leap will be the leap into an erotic situation of my own enjoyment.
Your first episode introduced the ejaculation of Mondas. And you were also in the episode where we talked about Sausage Party for way too long.
We did talk about Sausage Party for definitely too long. I don't know how long if we talked about it for 17 seconds, I want to stress, that is 18 seconds too long to be talking about Sausage Party.
Let's put our fetishes away for a second. Before we dive into this episode, tell us about your recent trip to Gallifrey.
Yes, Gallifrey 1 happened a weekend after Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone who's listening to this a month and a half after the fact. Gallifrey 1 is, I've gone to almost every Gallifrey 1 since 2010. Our mutual friend Ray Friesen took me to my first one, and love Ray to bits, love Gallifrey to bits. Gallifrey's become my favourite convention of the year. I absolutely adore Gallifrey. I think I had just gone to Gallifrey the last time I was on the podcast, or at least during a previous recording, because I've talked about Gallifrey on the show before. But this time was really, really special. David Bradley was there, Matt Lucas was there, Stephen Moffat was there this year, Murray Gold was there, Rachel Talalay, who directed basically all of Capaldi's finales, as well as Twice Upon a Time. It was a very emotional weekend for me. I know that Stephen Moffat's tenure as the showrunner of Doctor Who has been very contentious for some Doctor Who fans. I absolutely adore pretty much everything he's done. He's not perfect, but I have loved the version of Doctor Who that he has given us over the last 8 years. I'm an unashamed Moffat fan. Again, he's not perfect. There are nits to pick, but I love what he's done. I'm sad that he's leaving. There's no other TV show on this planet that helped me deal with, and this is going to get a little down for a second, but I promise we'll lift back up again in a sec. No other TV show helped me deal with the loss of my parents in 2014 quite like Doctor Who did, because my mother died almost immediately after Capaldi made his debut, and then my dad died about halfway through the season. Season 8 of Doctor Who is kind of coloured by the emotions that I was going through at the time, but the finale, like Dark Water, Death in Heaven, and then Last Christmas, like that trilogy of episodes with, and this is a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it. If you haven't seen it, you might want to skip on like 30, 60 seconds. But the death of Danny Pink, the way that Clara deals with that, and everything that happens with the follow-up in Last Christmas with the dream that Clara has where she's at Christmas with Danny, all of that helped me with my own personal grieving process. And then the following year we got Heaven Sent, which is an episode that is almost entirely about grief. Like, that's what that episode is about. So getting to thank in person Stephen Moffat, Rachel Talalay, and Murray Gold for the work that they did on those episodes was a very, very emotional experience for me that I don't think I'm ever going to forget. Murray Gold, by the way, wonderful man, did a 1-hour panel presentation thing about his work on the show, kind of a peek behind the scenes. We got to see what his workflow looks like when he's composing the show on his Mac. That was kind of cool. I went up to thank him at the bar in the hotel afterwards. I will generously describe him as gently drunk. And I went up to thank him and thank him for his work on those episodes in particular, and how much I've adored his work on the show over the last, 13, 14 years, and how much it has meant to me. And he gave me a hug that I swear to God lasted a solid minute. He was really cool. He was really just generous and kind and loving. And you always worry when you meet people who are responsible for something that matters to you, that they're going to be horrible, wretched people. You don't want a Will Wheaton meeting William Shatner on the set of Star Trek V experience. You do not want that, because that sucks for everyone. But every single human person I have met who has worked on Doctor Who has been nothing short of kind and loving and generous and warm and giving and beautiful and magical and scrumptious and spectacular. And I think it speaks to, there is one exception, but I'm not going to name names. Doctor Who is a show that at its core is about love and joy and hope. And I think you have to be a loving, joyous, hopeful person to work on that show. 99% of the people I have met who are connected to Doctor Who in some way are beautiful, wonderful, loving, joyous, hopeful people. And knowing that goes all the way up to the top of the tree with people like Moffat and, directors like Rachel Talalay, and I really hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and Murray Gold, whose music has basically been the underscore of my life for the last 14 years. And again, everything I've just said, very little of it funny, good podcast audio, but it is true. And I think that's just important. We're going to be very funny quite a lot for the next 17 hours while we're talking about Robot. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. You let us be ridiculous. We will be talking about erections very quickly. Don't pretend that we won't.
I'm just saying you're putting a lot of pressure on us to be funny.
Yeah, no, that was what that was about.
You guys are you guys are generally pretty entertaining.
Toni is.
Yeah, well, sometimes. But that was really mean. I'm sorry.
It's just honest.
I had a very emotional, very personal experience at Galley, as I often do. I think I spoke to you about it a couple of years ago when it was Claire Higgins who played Ahila from the Sisterhood of Khan, in Night of the Doctor and The Magician's Apprentice, reminded me so much of my mother. And I think I told you guys about it when that happened. And that I seem to, like, every 2 years it seems like I have an emotional Gallifrey 1 experience. And I really hope we can get you guys out there one of these years to maybe record a live show or participate in some of the nonsense that I do, because I'm not done yet, because we did a live playthrough of the Doctor Who RPG, which this is the second year that the convention has inexplicably allowed me to do that. It was myself, Christopher Jones, who was the artist on some of the Doctor Who comic books for Titan, Joseph Scrimshaw, who's a brilliant writer, he does a podcast called Obsessed, and then Dan Peck, who he works in the writer's room on Family Guy. We were going to have Lauren Berger, but she was moving that week and was kind of physically exhausted and couldn't make it, so in his stead was a wonderful friend of mine and a writer by the name of Michael Nixon. And then we ended up playing through a scenario that you guys are kind of already familiar with because we did it as one of the pilots for the podcast that I feel like we're never going to get to do. I took that dream, the somnivore idea that we did, and we did that live. I started them off on a cruise ship and then had them realize they were dreaming rather than just waking up in the room, which I think was a better opener. But it was the First Doctor, Nardole, Turlo, and Captain Jack Harkness.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
I'd love to see One and Jack. That'd be amazing.
Like, the beginning when they're on the cruise ship, Captain Jack is basically walking around in a silken robe with his knob hanging out, which the First Doctor finds offensive and tries to cover up. But Joseph, who was playing the Doctor, he didn't succeed on the check that I made him do, and he ended up falling over onto a naked Captain Jack. If there isn't fan art of that, this time next year... Actually, there's probably fan art of that already. It's the internet. What am I talking about? But the whole thing ended with Joseph as the First Doctor using a trait on his character sheet called Resourceful Pockets. He pulled out a miniaturized pocket-sized flamethrower and burnt to death the alien somnivore who I had decided looked like a giant argyle sock with feathers sticking out of its head. So the First Doctor committed an act of spectacular murder. It was hilarious. It was a really, really good time. It was the best galley I've ever been to. I just spent way too long talking about Gallifrey 1.
That was the Ben Paddon Gallifrey 1 update. Honestly, in the middle of that, I got a lump in my throat, but it was because I accidentally flung a hairband into my throat.
Is that where my hair tie went?
Yes, I was trying to shoot it for the cat to go chase so I could get her away, and it went the wrong way.
Now it's in your esophagus. Don't worry, you can have it back once he passes it.
I'm good.
So do you want to talk about Robot?
Nah.
Okay, cool. Alright, well, thanks everyone for listening to the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon. If you enjoy the show, do please support the show on Patreon. Your support allows us to ramble about nothing in future episodes. We're not going to watch Doctor Who anymore. We're just going to talk about erections and conventions that I have been to.
And erections you've had at those conventions.
Yes, absolutely. Don't forget to, if you like the podcast, don't forget to leave a positive review on MySpace, and please do share with all of your friends on Habbo Hotel. If you like the show, again, word of mouth is a terrible way to tell. Just give us money. We don't need you to tell other people about the podcast. Just give us all of your money.
All right.
Quick follow-up. How many boners did you pop at the convention?
We're on this so quickly.
All right. Let's talk about Robot.
I'm just going to say this now. I think we've got all the sex out of our system. We don't need the double entendre. I think it's fine. We'll just carry on. It's all good. This is the first episode of Robot. Do you want to give us the skinny on Robot? This is the episode where Tom Baker ejaculates onto the screen as the First Doctor.
Let's talk about episode 1. Which I have called the Robo-Robbery.
Why not just the robbery?
That's hard to say.
It does also sound like a room where a rich person keeps their robes.
The robbery.
Jeeves, head to the robbery and fetch me my finest shawl.
So the episode starts and we have a new intro.
Yeah,
have a new
because
doctor.
we have a new face.
That's right. But it's more or less the same title sequence that we've been using for the last season.
Yeah.
The vortex is a bit more beige.
Yeah, and we get the TARDIS is in it, which is new.
Oh yeah, it gets to be in space.
But there's this new, like, shaggy-looking fella in the opening credits.
I will stress, these opening titles, this is not my favourite version of the theme. That comes in about 5 or 6 years, but this is my favourite version of the opening title sequence. It is, as the Vortex, as a representation of the Vortex, I adore it. It's the most dynamic and visually interesting opening title sequence that Doctor Who has had up until this point.
I'm not so sure. I like the blue bit. I don't really like the beige bit that much.
The beige tunnel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks fleshy to me in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable.
I like it though. It's fine. It's like diving into a Cadbury cream egg. A long, tubular Cadbury cream egg.
Like I said, I like the blue bit. The blue bit's good. The diamond blue bit.
You're so dumb. Anyway, can we get past the title sequence for fuck's sake?
Okay, so we get a bit of a recap. We get to see John Pertwee.
Briefly.
We get to say goodbye to him again, I guess. It's not the last time we'll see him.
Or did I? Yes.
Because we see him in like a EastEnders crossover, right?
You see him in I was going to say the 50th anniversary. No, in the 20th anniversary, the Five Doctors, which is not the EastEnders crossover.
There is one, right?
There is one. It's bad. It's non-canon. Don't do it for the show, please. I beg of you.
Nope, gonna do it. But then he turns into Tom Baker.
Yeah.
Timothy Bakerson.
And he's cool. The end.
Yeah, that's it.
Are you feel okay?
Are you high right now?
I think so. Speaking of acting high, that's kind of what Tom Baker does for a little bit. He acts a little...
Regeneration sickness.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
He's a little manic. That kind of post-regenerative trauma, I think they call it, where he's a little caca cuckoo pants. To which Terrence Dicks said in an interview, he'd always planned to kind of write the Fourth Doctor wild for that first story, and if they wanted to tone it down afterwards, then they could, and just attribute it to, like, post-regenerative stress. They never, ever do. This is kind of the base. This is Tom Baker at a 0. This is Tom Baker at, like, base Baconness.
I mean, I could see them doing that because at this point there's a lot of, like, callbacks to, like, 3's first episode. Because he was a little out of it and running around in a hospital gown and getting the TARDIS key out of his shoes. And that all happens with 4 as well. While he's acting weird and saying things referencing previous Doctors, I feel like Benton and Brick are, like, talking about it, like, in the most casual manner possible. Like, they're just like, yeah, it's happening again. Oh well, we're used to this weirdness by now.
Well, I mean, the Brigadier, who, by the way, has never seen a regeneration, as it's about to happen, he goes, well, here we go again. Like, you weren't there last time, dude, come on.
He has interacted with 2 previous ones.
I mean, that is definitely true. And at least now he knows it's not like a weird, like, these are 2 separate people. Now he knows he's got definitive evidence. Which I'm sure will play out in future seasons as the Fourth Doctor continues to work with UNIT.
Yeah, this is the season of UNIT, right? This is the era of UNIT.
Yeah, I mean, it's UNIT for the rest of the show.
Right. Like, they even, like, fade out the Doctor, and it's just all
It's
UNIT.
all UNIT all the time.
Family unit.
Dr. UNIT. Don't laugh at that. You demean us all when you laugh at that joke.
What was I going to say? Also, they call for a doctor who was mentioned in the last serial, and his name is Sullivan, Harry Sullivan, who has no personality that I can discern.
I've never seen you so quickly dislike someone since Yates.
You guys think you didn't like Ben. I think Harry Sullivan is going to change your companion effectiveness rating scale to a considerable degree.
Like, Ben instantly, like, annoyed me, and I hated him. Like, just because he was, My problem with, like, Harry Sullivan is that he doesn't exist.
He's just there.
Yeah, he's basically a non-entity throughout the whole serial.
They set him up at the beginning to do a thing, and then, like, he goes away for a while, and when he came back, I was like, who the hell is that? Oh, right.
I think a character even says that.
Robot was the first Doctor Who serial that I owned on VHS as a kid, so I watched it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. When I rewatched the serial recently, I had forgotten that Harry Sullivan, A, was there, and B, that he got into the TARDIS at the end of the story and was a participant in further adventures. I had forgotten that.
Fun fact, I read you never actually see him in the TARDIS. I mean, you see him going in the TARDIS, but you never actually see him inside the TARDIS.
Inside.
Because I don't think you see inside the TARDIS this season.
Did they lose the set again?
Does that happen a lot? Like, you don't see inside the TARDIS in 3's first season either, because they were redoing it.
And then Three's TARDIS changed drastically over the course of his run. Yeah, I don't think you see much of Four's TARDIS this season. It's not really, I think, till the next one, like post-Harry, really, the Fourth Doctor's TARDIS kind of gets cemented. And then you see a lot of it going forward. And then we don't not see it for a while. Like, Sylvester McCoy's run, the set had started to kind of fall apart. So you don't see the interior of the TARDIS hardly at all during Sylvester McCoy's second and third seasons.
Because that makes me sad, because I like seeing the inside of the TARDIS. I wish there was more episodes set inside the TARDIS.
Just completely inside the TARDIS.
Do a bottle episode inside the TARDIS sort of thing. I think they've done it, but...
Well, I have some good news for you. You definitely have an Inside the TARDIS episode coming up in about 9 seasons.
How many seasons does 4 go? It's a lot.
He's the Doctor from season 12 to season 18, so that's 1, 2, 3, 7 seasons.
That's as many seasons as some shows get, period.
That's as many seasons as there are of Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And more than Enterprise. And the original series. Take that, Kirk.
Back to the episode.
There's a shitty robot! I love him.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Like, the first thing you see is from the robot's point of view, and they have these, like, clamp hands and these, like, really shitty wrists that are just, like, wires that barely hold up the hands.
Right. Why didn't they just make, like, gloves? Like, why is it on this weird stick-thin thing?
You work with what you have.
Do you think he had one of those, like, you know, like when you get the little grabber things?
They had, like, a little grabber thing on the inside.
Like
and you just pull on a trigger.
I had one as a kid that was like a little dino head, those things. I think you can get them as sharks, too. You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't know what you were talking about until you were like, I think you can get them as sharks. And then I was like, oh, right. That really cleared it up for me. For some reason, you could only buy them at like Six Flags or the zoo.
I got mine at the dollar store. The robot has those for hands. Just little shark heads.
That actually would be great. That sounds amazing.
I'm reminded of that Vine with the shark watching Shark Week. Honey, Greg's on TV!
But it's breaking into a safe. Does it hurt a dog at one point? I know there was a dog.
There's a dog barking and then there's a dog off-screen whimpering. I don't know if it hurt the dog or if it's the dog's just sad that it walks past it.
So he opens a safe, and inside is a very clearly labeled top secret file.
I'm glad they haven't stopped labeling their top secret files with Sharpie.
Big block letters.
I just imagine the Brig sitting there with, like, the crayon, like, holding it in his fist, sitting there with, like, this tongue sticking out the corner of his mouth, like, just scribbling, top secret.
Now they know.
Now they'll know not to look in this folder.
So Sarah Jane comes to talk to the Brig. Well, Brig comes to talk to her because he can't talk to the Doctor because the Doctor's still out of it. Sarah Jane, meanwhile, wants a visitor's pass for this
think tank event.
So she can do a story on him because I don't know if you guys know this, but Sarah Jane is a journalist. Also, at this point, she calls the Brig a swinger?
And I feel like it's important to note that the Brig does not argue with this.
I know swinger means more than just swapping partners, but...
No.
That's what she's talking about, right?
No, I mean, there's no confirmation in canon that Kate Stewart is biologically the daughter of Brigadier Gordon Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart. It could be any number. I don't know. I thought they we're veering into dangerous territory with this conversation. There's already a debate among fan circles about whether or not Mark Gatiss is playing his grandfather or his great uncle in Twice Upon a Time.
Really?
Oh.
That seems like a pointless conversation to have.
And yet, here we are having it. What does that say about us as a species?
As they're leaving, the Brig and Sarah Jane, the Doctor is sneaking around in his hospital gown, trying to get back into his TARDIS, but he can't because it's locked, but the key is an issue, and he's about to go when Sullivan comes in. Hey, you guys remember Sullivan?
Nope, already forgot him.
He wants to take the Doctor back to the sick bay. But, like, the Doctor's like, I'm not sick, and, like, starts running in place to prove it. And I'm like, at this point, I'm down for the Doctor. I am fully on board with Tom Baker. I am already in love.
Tom Baker's great. Like, he really cements his personality in his opening scenes, not just where he kind of goes caca for Cuckoo Puffs, but everything that leads up to him getting dressed in the clothes that we identify with him as, and which is such a gorgeous, it's such a fun scene.
God, what a great
In this scene with Sullivan, and he's like, check me out, and like, hear my heartbeats and everything, they start jump roping together, and it's amazing.
It's pretty great. I still remember the rhyme that they did, and I used to do that when I would play jump rope in the playground at school when I was a kid.
Aw, baby Ben.
What is it? How's it go?
Please don't make me do it on the podcast. I do not get paid enough of an appearance fee.
We've had previous guests sing the Haroon 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 song. Chris Cherry did the chant from the Macra Terror.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to do the skipping thing because I think it is something that if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the episode, I don't want your first exposure to that rhyme to be me. You need to go off and listen to it. I think that's more important.
I think someone's a chicken, but okay.
But yeah, they do have that scene where the Doctor is changing outfits, and I'm trying to think of what all he goes through. I think at one point he has like a full-on like jester outfit.
Well, it's like it's card suits and stuff.
Yeah,
like he looks like the king off of a deck of cards. I don't think it's necessarily a jester.
No, that's not the one I was talking about.
No?
No.
Oh, he's dressed up like a clown.
Yeah.
He does a Viking, which I think that should have been the canon outfit, if I'm being completely honest with you. Tom Baker's a Viking, I'm very much in favour of.
I'd be for it. So before he does the outfit thing, Sarah, Jane, and Brig come back, and they find Sullivan in the cupboard. The Doctor has just stuffed him in there upside down and tied his legs up. Did he? I guess he tied him in the cupboard with the jump rope.
Yes, which again, Chekhov's gun or Chekhov's jump rope, if you like.
But luckily he has not left because Sarah Jane knocks on the TARDIS door and he's like, "I'm getting out of here. You guys want to go?"
Here to say goodbye. Yeah, he's ready to peace out. He's done.
But they talk him into staying because, hey, there's a robot, and he's like, "Robot? Tell me more." And that's when he decides to change outfits. And then we get the classic outfit.
He's got the hat. He's got the scarf.
I knew what this guy looked like before I even knew what Doctor Who was.
Well, he's been in The Simpsons like 3 times.
Like, people that don't know Doctor Who or whatever, and they think about classic Doctor Who specifically,
They think about
four.
Yeah, I think modern Doctor Who, they either think about David Tennant or Matt Smith, and I think the classic Doctor Who, Tom Baker with the scarf, it's an iconic outfit. Like, no matter how much you like John Pertwee or William Hartnell or Patrick Troughton, you know, there's something very iconic about Tom Baker's look. It's that hat and that improbably long scarf.
Does he maintain that look throughout his entire run?
It does change a little bit as things go on. The coat gets swapped out, and then for his last season, his outfit is almost entirely different. But I'm not going to describe that. I'm going to let you guys look. It gives you guys something to look forward to, I think, if I enigmatic on that front.
The scarf is the big thing, though, I feel like. That's what everyone remembers.
It is the big thing in that it is very, very long. It is a long and big thing.
I heard a rumor that it's so long because the person making it didn't know how to make a scarf and just made it, like, way too long.
I think the official account from people who worked on the show is that they got a freelance knitter or knits body or whatever the term is to come in and make the scarf, and they bought her all this yarn, but she didn't know that she didn't have to use all of it. So she just kept knitting and knitting until she'd run out of yarn.
Holy shit.
That's delightful.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels like it should be, so I'm going with it.
The thing is, they utilize the scarf and its length a lot in this serial.
Oh, and it gets used on and off as a plot device of sorts, right up to and including the Fourth Doctor's final story.
They utilize it well, I feel like. It's like the new sonic screwdriver. But they go to check out the crime scene of this robot. The Brig and unit are going to go check it out, and the Doctor is just checking out some flowers.
As he does, that's kind of his thing.
And they're like, "You need to focus on what you're doing," and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "I am. Look, here's all of my Sherlock shit."
That's literally what he says, line for line.
And he's like, "See, it's like crushed a specific way, which means there's something heavy here. There's a 1/4 of a ton footprint."
Yeah, like he makes a bunch of really cool deductions that kind of, even though he's a different person, you kind of get this very clear cut image of this person who is very clearly sharp as a tack, as they say, as all the people say. They say it all the time.
I've heard it. I've heard it. From you just now. Oh, I mean, they also, like, sort of study the scene and, like, the safe or whatever has been burst through and the doctor's like, that was a disintegrator gun. I know that, too. I know lots of things. Then we go to Sarah Jane going to the think tank, and we establish that Sarah Jane is a sexist.
Yes, she's a massive, massive raging misogynist. Who knew? Because
there's two people, and she goes up to there's a man and a woman, and she goes up to the man and is like, nice to meet you, head of this think tank. And the woman's like, excuse me, I am the head of this think tank.
This is my assistant.
Gregor. No, that's not his name.
All of this talk, like Sarah Jane talking about being a feminist, and boom, she failed.
That's what she gets for something.
And then we cut back to the doctor, who is just like chilling out, just relaxing.
Maxing all cool and all shooting some b-ball outside of the school. When a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in his neighborhood, and he got in one little fight, and Rassilon got scared and said, you're moving with your auntie and uncle in the death zone.
That all happened in this episode, you guys. They've gone in a new direction. It's now a sitcom. But like the doctor's like chilling, hanging out in the unit car. Like he's like super...
He's lounging.
Yeah.
He's like leaning.
And he does this throughout the entire serial.
Like he's just barely expending the effort to go through things.
He's laying on everything. I like what he does in this scene, too, because he's, like, talking out what's happening, but he sort of, like, makes the brig come to the conclusions instead of just telling him, but in, like, a fun way, not in a condescending way.
Yeah, it doesn't feel, like, patronizing or condescending, yeah, it doesn't feel like he's being a douche about it. He's reached the conclusion, and he's trying to nudge the Brigadier towards the same conclusion.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like John Pertwee would have done the same thing, and I would have been slightly annoyed at it. I don't know. Tom Baker is just way more charming about it.
Yeah, I think this is like one of the first things that we see of the Doctor being the Doctor in a way that differentiates him from his predecessor.
And again, I am down for it. I can already tell I'm going to love this Doctor a lot. Sarah Jane is on a tour with the think tank people and then sees a door that says no admittance. And then she's like, oh, what's in here? And
no admittance, I think is what it says.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's where I'm going.
If a door says no admittance, that's fine. But if you put absolutely no admittance, that means there's something fishy behind that door. Like, I don't care where you are.
Like, the more severe that statement gets, the more you're like, okay, what evil murder thing's behind the door, though?
It would be more discouraging to see the sign say, some admittance, okay. I don't want to know what's behind that door. But a door that says absolutely no admittance, suddenly I need to know what's behind it.
Absolutely no admittance. Seriously, don't even think about it. Don't come in here at all. Nothing sketchy going on. Promise.
This means you! 3 exclamation marks.
So yeah, she just immediately busts in and slips in some oil. And they're like, that's all that's here is just a weird oil puddle. Nothing to worry about. Please leave. So they get her out. Meanwhile, there's been another robot attack. The Doctor and the unit go and they set up a perimeter around the vault. Well, no, there's not an attack. They think there's going to be another attack. So they set up like a preemptive. They're like, this vault in there is impregnable. There's no way we can get through it. And the Doctor's like, I don't like that word, impregnable. It reminds me of the Titanic. And he's like, why does it remind you of the Titanic? And he just goes, glub, 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 and sinks back down into the unit car. Basically, they're like all focused on this one thing, and the Doctor's like, robot's gonna go underground. Calling it now. And the robot goes underground and busts into the thing and steals the shit. I don't remember exactly how this scene happens.
What are you trying to remember?
We meet a scientist. The guy
my gosh, we meet the best character of this serial. Are you kidding me?
Possibly one of the best characters in any Doctor Who.
Just for his hair alone.
He is the guy who designed the robot, basically. And his hair is so big.
He has this, like, big gray hair, but he's bald up top. But, like, the hair he does have is so much.
Yes, he has very big hair.
Round spectacles.
What's his name? Steven. Yeah, it's Steven. I don't think I ever wrote his name down. I think he's just hair. I think I literally refer to him as hair in my notes for the entirety of my notes.
The best thing about this, by the way, is his hair is one of the reasons why he was cast in the role. It was like, well, what else can you do? And so, well, I can stick my hair up like this. And it's like, you're in.
That was the right call, too.
This actor has been on the show before, too. But he did not have the hair, the owl look that he has. But he's working on alternative energy as well.
Because he used to work at the think tank, and he doesn't anymore.
The doctor and unit are examining the tunnel that the robot dug, and they're like, there's no, structures holding it up. There's nothing, dig marks or anything.
Whoever tunneled through...
pushed through.
Didn't need to breathe.
Which, I've seen the robot. I don't believe that. I don't think it just walked through. It looks like it can barely stand on its own legs.
Well, the thing you have to remember about Doctor Who is they had a lot of big ideas, but a very small budget. So they probably wanted this diggy, massive, hulking, great big robot, but didn't have the money to... So it looks like a guy who's been, screwed into a giant metal coffin, but in actuality, it is a man who has been screwed into a giant metal coffin.
There's a scene where, in the script, the robot was supposed to pick up and throw these giant wooden crates.
Oh, and it just
in the episode, it just
very gently
sort of shoves it over, take that crate. Because it can't pick up things with its little...
This tiny clam pants. So
Sarah Jane decides to go back to the think tank place. And she's like, oh, I left my purse, or something like that. And, the guard goes to, check and see if she can be let in. And then she just leaves her car, I guess, and sneaks into the absolutely no admittance door, touches the oil, and is like, yep, that's some oil. I knew it. And then we get the cliffhanger, which is robot. Not only... Okay, so you talked about its hands, and it's got, really stick-thin wrists.
Yeah.
It's got little shaky...
I think it's just the wires that are used to
do the clamping?
Yeah.
But it also has, really tiny legs.
Like human-sized legs?
Yeah, I feel like they could have beefed it up a little bit. But he, tapers down, like an inverted pyramid.
I love my ugly robot child.
You have a thing about robots. But you already knew that. I don't know why I'm telling you that.
I like what I like.
The theme of this episode is fetishes.
Oh, no.
Did you just publicly out your wife?
She did that way before I did.
First of all, you guys made it weird.
I tried really hard to not make it weird. I want to stress this.
I'm pretty sure you've made posts on Tumblr man, I want to fuck a robot.
I'm pretty sure I've not.
I think... Wait, you said you'd fuck a clone. That's what it was, not a robot.
Yeah, that's a different thing. Fucking a clone is completely different.
That's a different conversation. There's a whole lot of, different scenarios, each of which are ethically different, and I broke them all down. I just feel like that's important to say.
That's the end of episode 1.
Oh, no.
And we are now into episode 2, which I've called SRS Business.
All right.
Serious business.
Not what I would have called it, but we'll take it.
What would you have called it?
Robot Part 2.
Fair enough. I missed the individual episode titles.
I would have called it The Robot of Death. What a clever and original title.
So the think tank people come in and go, we were playing a prank on you. We knew you'd come back and sneak in, so this robot is a prank.
It was never really going to kill you. Wink.
Yeah, it's just a prank. It's just a guy in a costume. That's all it is.
That's why it looks so shitty.
And then the story ends. Yeah, part 2 is 4 minutes long. It's just the opening titles. Don't worry, it's just a prank. It's just a person, never mind. And then the end credits roll.
But the doctor is talking out his theories and figures that it's not aliens or the government. He thinks it's local, though. I don't remember what his reasoning behind this is, but it's right.
Just some straight up deduction.
They're really hitting the Sherlock angle hard in this serial. But back at the think tank, Sarah Jane gets a robo demonstration, and we get the name of the robot, which is K1. I want to see 2 through 8. Because I know what K9 looks like. But this is K1, the original model, right?
Wow, you're really doing that, huh?
Yes? Is that not true? Is this not the first in the series that leads up to K9? Does Sarah Jane not have, K1
K7.
through 9 robot companions? Because K9's also with Sarah Jane, right? So this is the first one.
Oh wait, no. Sarah Jane never travels with K9.
What? Seriously?
Sarah Jane does not meet K9 until the first episode of the spin-off series that never happened, K9 and Company. Sarah Jane doesn't meet K9 until the pilot for K9 and Company, which was called A Girl's Best Friend.
I did not know that, because I've seen New Who, and I've seen all of Sarah Jane Adventures, so I just figured K9 and Sarah Jane were like a big deal.
No, in K9 and Company, K9 is shipped to Sarah Jane by the Doctor as a gift, and that's the setup. But had the show gone to series, it would have been revealed that K9, that wasn't actually K9, and he'd been sent to Sarah Jane by the Master as part of a ploy for something. But the Sarah Jane, K9 and Company never went to series, so that never happened.
Is it still considered, canon as much as there can be canon for Doctor Who?
K9 and Company is considered canon, and is referenced in the Five Doctors, in fact.
Oh, interesting. I thought Sarah Jane and K9 were, together a lot.
No, very much not. In fact, it isn't until after... It's Leela, who is the companion that comes after Sarah Jane. She travels with K9.
My whole, worldview has been twisted and torn apart.
Yes, good.
So anyway, we now meet its first incarnation, K1. But they turn the robot on her and, it's going to, kill her. But then it's oh no, ethical dilemma. Isaac Asimov's rules of robots. Can't do it. It's programmed not to hurt people.
Yeah, he totally wigs out, to use 90s parlance.
And then Sarah Jane is Toni. She's all oh no, why would you do this to this poor robot? You've put it through a terrible ethical dilemma. Why would you do this? This robot has feelings and emotions.
And credit cards and keys.
To be fair to Sarah Jane, the robot does seem very distressed.
I know, you were distressed that the robot was distressed.
Of course I was! It was having a hard time.
For those of you who don't know, Toni is a big fan of robots and their feelings.
But not in a weird way.
I'm pretty sure you've cried at Short Circuit, Chappie, the Iron Giant.
Who doesn't cry at the Iron Giant?
Right, you'd have to be heartless to not cry at
You'd
Iron
have
Giant.
to literally be dead inside.
Yeah, the Iron Giant is the perfect movie.
That's true, that's fair. But if there's a robot and it has emotions, you're probably all about it.
Probably.
Bicentennial Man.
Yeah.
Did you cry at Wall-E?
Do you know I didn't particularly like Wall-E?
Really?
Yeah.
You are a bad person for not liking Wall-E.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just didn't like it as much as everyone else seemed to have. I was like, yeah, that was cool. And then everyone else was like, that was the best thing ever. And I was like, okay, that seems kind of strong.
I will say I feel the first half of that movie is better than the second half of that movie.
I don't have any strong... I wouldn't be like, oh, the thing the movie should have done was this. I don't have any, very strong feelings about it.
That's weird.
Is it?
You love robots.
Wall-E doesn't do any of the things... I find particular things interesting with robots.
The robots have, feelings and emotions or whatever, but that's, it's not, a becoming human thing. Is that the problem? In Iron Giant, it's a robot learning to deal with emotions, whereas Wall-E, it's just that's cute. A robot with emotions.
Yeah, they're just cute robots. Yeah, exactly.
So it's that developing thing that you like.
Yeah. The idea of being on kind of the outskirts of humanity and not feeling like you belong to it, that's the thing that's appealing to me.
Okay, so the robot has feelings. Sarah Jane has feelings about the robot's feelings. Toni has feelings about the robot's feelings, and Sarah Jane's feelings about the robot's feelings.
I instantly liked Sarah Jane 20 times more than I already did, which was already a lot. So
then Sarah Jane heads straight to Unit and to tell him, I've got a robot friend now. The think tank people start working on the robot and they're like, oh my goodness, one of them was I can't believe you did that. It could have killed her. We haven't got all the kinks worked out of this robot yet.
Kinks! See? We don't have all of the kinks out of this robot yet, to which K1 says, put a banana up my asshole! I've been a naughty boy, spank me, daddy! They do have a conversation about how he misses his daddy. There is that conversation. They're talking about the hair scientist. He is the robo-daddy. We didn't say, but when the robot fails to kill Sarah Jane, they're like, see? We were just showing you how safe it is. And Sarah Jane's like, uh-huh.
Okay, bye.
She's like, oh gee, I have to literally leave straight away forever.
But then, like, pretty much immediately after, and they're like, when they're working on the robot, they project onto the wall a picture of a guy that they want the robot to murder. That seems like an inefficient way to feed your robot information.
I feel like at this point, it being the 70s, there is such a thing as a serial cable. Like, you can plug this bad mamma jamma. There's so many other ways to transfer that data. A hilariously large floppy disk, perhaps.
You could even just hold up the picture like, hey, this one. Why do you have to project it onto... You have to pull down the projector screen, turn on the projector, put it into the projector, then project it.
You gotta fiddle with the imports, you gotta make sure the aspect ratio is set correctly. Is it on input 1, input 2? Did we plug is it HDMI or are we using the composite cable? I can't remember. It's... Oh god, now which...
Oh, turn the lights down.
Turn the lights down. It's stuck on the sports. How do we get it off of ESPN3? How do we do that? Oh, it's input 2. Okay, alright, okay, I've got it. I've got it now. Okay, we got it. Okay, so you kill him.
Then the robot goes and kills John Madden.
Yeah. Good, frankly.
They're talking about, like, they're wanting to infiltrate the thing or whatever, and they're, like, going to possibly send Sullivan as a spy.
So that happens.
Yeah, and then that's the point where, like, he disappears and I completely forget about him.
He's the perfect spy because everyone immediately forgets his face as soon as they are no longer He's the man in the tan jacket from Welcome to Night Vale. He's if beige were a person.
He really is. He's, like, I can't even remember what he looks like, thinking about him.
He's got, like, that kind of, Stephen Moffat-esque kind of tight, curly hair.
Do you know I almost can? Normally I can't remember faces and all.
But you can remember his face?
Wait. Are you saying his face is so ordinary that it sticks out as memorable to you?
Yes!
You, with your comedy face blindness, can remember the indistinct features of Harry Imbecile Sullivan.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it's true.
He's so unremarkable that he's looped round the other way to become so remarkable that a face-blind human person, that's actually impressive.
Are you aware that he was in a previous serial?
No.
He was in Carnival of Monsters.
Who was he in Carnival of Monsters?
You know the boat with all the...
He was the boat.
He was the boat. He was the boat, not the captain, but whatever the main guy was. Because you never saw the captain. He was the main boat guy with the white hat. The doctor punched him in the face. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Beginning a long line... Well, I don't think he was beginning, because I'm sure there have been other companions, but one in a long line of actors who have been in the show and then were later cast as a companion.
Right, Steven was one of those, too. Steven's first appearance was great. He was the guy from Alabama on top of the Empire State Building, talking to them Daleks. Yeehaw!
With a very good, a very authentic accent that is not terrible.
Coming from Alabama, I particularly enjoyed it.
I still need to watch The Gunslingers. My DVD collection is complete, and The Gunslingers is one of the few First Doctor serials I've never watched.
Really? I love The Gunslingers.
Yeah, it's totally worth it.
It has a terrible song in it that I downloaded and is like 11 minutes long.
Is that your ringtone now?
It should be. But Steven is great in it. It's the best Steven serial, I'd say.
Steven serial is my favourite Cartoon Network series.
Man, I want to watch Gunslingers now.
No, we're talking about Robot.
Well, okay, so while they're having this discussion about Sullivan possibly being a spy, the Doctor is building something?
He's just stacking things on top of other things.
Yeah, and then it just falls over. So it wasn't very sturdy to begin with. I have no idea what he was doing.
He's stacking things on top of other things.
This is when he's like, I want to go talk to the scientist, the guy with the hair. And then they do, and that's when he bonds with the scientist over science stuff. And then he's like, all right, cool, now let's cut the shit. Let's talk about the robot. And then they do. We find out that the robot has the brain print of the scientist guy.
Oh yeah, he put his own brain in his child's brain because why wouldn't he?
He wants to imprint on his child, literally.
It's kind of a Data Lal Star Trek The Next Generation situation. You guys have seen that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where Data, the robot, makes a child robot and is a dad.
Mm-mm.
Neither one of us has seen a single episode of Star Trek.
Yep, we're saving that.
I will tell you that the end of the episode is sad, but in the best possible way.
The only Star Trek I've seen is the first 2 reboot movies.
You're a bad person and you're going to hell. Yes, you're a bad person and you're going to hell. You're going to the special level for people who don't watch Star Trek.
I've seen one of the Next Generation movies, but I couldn't tell you which one.
Yeah, they're all mostly forgettable.
I know through like pop culture osmosis who all of them are. I've not seen any. We will watch it if people donate to our Patreon.
It's a stretch goal to do
the Watch-A-Thon of Con.
Are we at the point yet where K1 has just showed up at the scientist's house?
That's basically what we're at. Because the doctor talks to him, and then he sort of... The robot goes and kills the colonel, I guess, and gets stuff from a safe.
And he has, like, this crisis of identity because he's doing things that he knows he's been programmed not to do. So he goes home to Daddy.
After the doctor goes back to unit, and they're like, what are we going to do now, doctor? And the doctor's like, take a nap. It reminds me so much of like the first serial. Is it the first or second serial of 2? It's the first one with Jamie, the Highlanders, and he just takes a nap in the middle of it. They're like, we got to do stuff, and he's like, nope, nap. That's my favorite aspect. The doctor and I solve
our problems in very similar ways.
He doesn't even sleep in a bed. He climbs up on top of his like lab table and just pulls the chain. Lights go out and he goes to sleep. He's like, we'll deal with the think tank tomorrow.
Yeah, they'll keep. The think tank will still be there in the morning.
So the robot comes in and talks to his robo-daddy. It is! What?
Nothing, it's fine. It's not at all the worst.
The Doctor and the Brigadier go to think tank. The dude... Is it the man or the woman? It's the woman, I think, says that the robot... We've taken the robot apart and we're done now. And the Doctor thinks that's BS. She also... knows that the Doctor thinks that's BS.
And then I know that you know that you know that I know. That whole sort of thing.
And then that's when Harry arrives dressed as... And we're supposed to... Oh, it's Harry! But what happens is...
Who's that guy in the hat?
Who's that guy in that? Because he takes his hat off like he's a fucking Avenger. He's like, oh, good day to you. Like he's fucking John Steed.
This isn't suspicious at all.
Also, at no point of him being a spy are they not suspicious of him.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene where they're like, so this guy just showed up?
Come to check medical records.
Yeah. At the same time that, like, Unit has been, like, checking us out.
And this journalist has been checking us out.
That's not convenient. Keep an eye on him. But they don't, because as soon as you look away from him, you forget his face.
Again, outfit and everything, he's the man in the tan jacket.
And then Sarah Jane tries to sneak into this SRS, the think tank's, like, big... meeting up thing.
Now, refresh my memory. The think tank's logo is basically Pac-Man, right? It's either Pac-Man or it's a pizza.
All I remember is that it's Nazi. That it's an armband that everyone wears.
Sarah Jane goes to because there's going to be like a big conference and she wants to get in on it. And she goes and talks to this asshole, basically.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you're a lady and you blah, 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 and you're beneath me and blah, blah, blah. The whole thing.
I don't think he says you're beneath me because you're a lady. It's because she's not smart enough.
I think it's all around just condescending and awful.
Well, yeah.
And it feels very relevant to today, I feel like, because we're about to get, like, heavy Nazi metaphors and stuff. And also, like, she specifically mentions flat earthers, which has recently become, like, a big thing. I personally am, I don't know if I'm related, but maybe related through marriage. But I know someone who is a flat earther. Are a flat earther?
I don't think I know. I don't know. I'm not a flat earther. No, I have a modicum of common sense. The entire flat earther movement is, firstly, not really worth our discussing, because it's basically a group of people who all get together and have agreed among themselves that they're the world's dumbest people. It's like, it's like if fucking village idiots could unionize. That's what the Flat Earth Society is. And here's the thing, I don't want to be dismissive of an entire group of people, but I do want to be dismissive of an entire group of idiots. Because it is idiocy in the grandest, most spectacular form. This is when Joe reveals that he's actually a flat earther.
Yep.
Oh no!
It's out. Because it doesn't make sense. Why when you look out, like, look, I'm looking at the ground now and it's flat.
God damn it, Joe. Don't do this. Don't do this to me. Here's the thing. I put out a question on Twitter a while back because flat earthers believe that the reason the water doesn't just fall off the sides like the fucking Discworld is that there's like an ice firmament around the rim, to which I responded, well, how do flat earthers feel about climate change? Because if the ice caps are melting, that's a serious problem for us. All the water's going to go away. And the response I got was, oh, well, flat earthers don't believe in climate change. To which my response is, we have actual evidence. 98% of scientists believe that climate change is a thing, even if you want to dispute the roundness of the Earth, which, by the way, is a stupid dispute to have. But let's give them that. Let's let them have that particular flavour of idiot cake. They can have that. Why then would they not want to do more research into climate change? Why would they not be pro-green movement? Because they've just decided, oh, climate change isn't real. Why?
Well, the thing is, I feel like they think that all scientists are
just
liars.
make shit up.
That's the nub of it, really, isn't it? It's an intellectual kind of
Anti-intellectualism.
Anti-intellectualism. I was going to say like a casual poo-pooery of scientific knowledge and rational thought. Like
that sounds like potpourri that stinks.
It's poo-pooery, as in they're poo-pooing the fart that they made. It baffles me how a person can be so the Earth is round, you say, and you have evidence and scans and it's trackable, it's active. Okay, well, I think not that. I think flat Earth all the way, flat Earth, a layer of ice, no climate change. The ice caps aren't melting. We're a bowl. We're a bowl with ice edges, and that's how it has always been. We're flat. Like this fucking flat Stanley society of morons.
And I don't want to talk to a scientist. Y'all motherfuckers lying and getting me pissed. That is from Miracles by Insane Clown Posse.
Thanks.
Oh,
yeah.
From which we derive the philosophy, fucking magnets, how do they work?
And I feel like that's just the attitude of everyone that's like flat earthers. It's just they don't believe scientists. That it's not that. Yeah, they think everyone's lying to them. So climate change, it's all up for discussion, I guess.
This cereal though is actually like what those people are afraid of, because it's all these intellectual people who are like, well, we're the smartest, we're the elites. Like, they literally call themselves the elites multiple times.
Also, there's this, like, Sarah Jane is, like, disparagingly, saying you're, like, the flat earthers or people who believe in all that, like, tabloid nonsense and alien abductions, which, to be fair...
People who believe in alien abductions in the Doctor Who universe probably know
right.
some shit.
Yeah, that doesn't jive very well with this universe. So next up, the scientist with the hair calls up the doctor and says, I have the robot, because the robot came. But then, after he hangs up, the think tank people sort of burst in and kidnap everybody and stuff. Or they take the robot.
Like, I know that the actor playing Kettlewell was cast because of his wild and wacky hair, but, like, when he's on the phone, like, telling the doctor how agitated and concerned he is about the robot, like, I believe that performance. Like, that is a very real, palpable performance that he's giving, where he's expressing his concern for this creature he's created that is in distress. Like, it's a really strong performance. Like, I really believed it.
I feel like, is that like double layers of acting? Because isn't it revealed later that he's kind of with SRS?
Okay, here's SOS's logo. I'm actually watching the episode now. It's two sideways Pac-Mans that are overlaid over the top. So it's one Pac-Man with two mouths, one facing left, one facing right.
Like hourglassy, but like more intense?
Like an hourglass Pac-Man. A sexy Pac-Man, if you will.
I will not.
What you don't know, Joe, is that you already did. I did it 35 minutes ago.
So the doctor is going to leave and go to the scientist and check out the robot and everything. And before he leaves a note so everyone knows where he is. And he has an amazing WPM. Just amazing. It's like words per minute, tell me.
Thanks.
She's like, I don't even remember what the note says, but... Oh, and we get to see Bessie again. The doctor drives Bessie. Does Bessie stick around?
We don't see much of Bessie from this point onwards in the show.
Well, that's sad. Well, I guess because it's not on... It's not as Earth-based anymore.
Yeah.
I figured we wouldn't see the Who-mobile because that's John Pertwee's personal car, but I was very pleased to see Bessie. I love Bessie.
And Bessie loves you.
Aw.
Just kidding, Bessie doesn't know you exist.
So Sarah Jane comes back to unit and she meets Benton, and Benton's been promoted. He's been such a good boy.
Wow, that really matters to you. And only you.
I love Benton so much. Always Benton, never Yates.
I thought we agreed sometimes Yates.
Nope, you did. I didn't. Fucking traitor. So anyway, he's now, I don't know what he got promoted to, but I read on the internet it means he gets to be called Mr.?
That doesn't seem like a good promotion.
It doesn't, does it? Mr. Benton instead of Sergeant Benton.
Like, you just get to be called Mr. right now, and you haven't done shit.
Thanks.
You've accomplished very little in your short, insignificant life, Joe.
I've heard that this is not the last of Benton, but it's
close to it.
Yeah, like, he's not in it very much.
You haven't seen the last of me. Yes, we have.
Fun fact, like, I think one of the first sort of spin-off media things that not necessarily canon Doctor Who, but, like, still had, like, actors and stuff from the show. First one had Benton in it. And it was, I don't know, I think it was maybe a sequel to Inferno. I could be wrong.
Thank you for some of that maybe information.
You are welcome. So, yeah, they read the note, and then Sarah Jane's gonna head over to meet up with the Doctor. But, yeah, so the Doctor meets the robot, and the robot attacks. Like, he's running around. He tries to trip him with his scarf.
He goes through, like, a series of... He's, like, running around the room, running around the robot.
He throws some, like, weird balls at him.
He's got, like, marbles, I think, in his pocket, and he throws them and tries to trip him. He has, like, a series of traps that he tries to employ.
Yeah, he ties the scarf to a pillar, and the robot just punches the pillar down. Slightly off screen. That's some bad framing. The last thing he does is the Doctor's like, fuck it, I don't know, and puts his hat on the robot, and the robot stops.
It's like trying to steal something in Skyrim, so you put a bucket over the shopkeeper's head and now he can't see you. That's a real thing you can do in the game.
That's some bug bladder beast of trawl logic right there. But it turns out it was a double bluff, because the Doctor's like, oh, that worked, and goes and walks up to the robot, and the robot decks him. And the Doctor goes down, and the robot starts stomping toward him, and that's the cliffhanger. That's the end of episode 2. We're now into episode 3, which I've called Attack of the Scientists, because I couldn't come up with anything better.
Great.
Cool. Then we get a long-ass recap. It's like 2 minutes.
It's a big chunk. It's a larger chunk than we usually get for recaps.
Maybe the one for Planet of the Spiders, the last episode, was maybe a little bit longer, but this one is still really long. It starts like before, like when the Doctor arrives, before he meets the robot, and then the robot comes in, and we get that whole rigmarole again. But Sarah Jane comes in and stops the robot, and the robot is very confused and like, I feel sad! Ah!
It stops for Sarah Jane because it's like, you were worried. Sarah Jane was like concerned about it before, and it remembers that.
And then my baby boy fucks up.
What was that about Always Benton?
Yeah.
Your fave is problematic.
Ben comes in and starts shooting the robot. That's what happens when you're promoted through the ranks. You get that brig mentality where you gotta shoot everything. So Benton shoots the robot, and the robot's like, ah! And then slowly rampages out.
Like, they could at any point have been like, I'll just go stand in front of him and stop him. No.
This is the scene where he very casually pushes over a crate. Like, they're like, and he's just like slowly hobbling his way through. That happens a lot in this serial where it's like, things are like intense and everyone's moving away, and then like they're just slowly walking because that robot moves at like 1 step at a time, very, very slowly. Probably because he's like, I can't see my feet. So yeah, but the robot goes away, and they open the safe, and the scientist falls out of it. There's a lot of shoving people into small like cupboards and safes. That happens in this twice. That's a lot. And then he talks about the robot, gives a bit of backstory about it as Sarah Jane checks him for lice. I'm not sure what she's doing. She's definitely...
What?
She's definitely, like, picking through his hair. She's, like, pulling stuff out of his hair.
She was putting a bandage.
Maybe she's putting a bandage.
Checking for lice.
I think she was checking for lice. But he says that he invented living metal, and that's what the robot is made out of. Metal that learns.
This is my favorite thing, because he invented living metal. And that's not important enough to even really mention. Also, he made a shitty robot.
It's somewhat burying the lead a little bit. We've invented living metal. That's the start of a story. That is a whole Doctor Who story in its own right. Instead it's made of a robot. Halfway through part 3 of this 4-part story about this robot. Yeah, he's made of a kind of a living metal. So, stop. What? No. We are taking this back 2.5 episodes, and we are starting again, and we are going to talk about the living metal. And the story is going to be called The Living Metal.
Not only has he invented a living metal, he's invented a metal virus to stop the living metal.
I like how he casually mentions that too. Oh yeah, also, here's the thing that destroys it. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, my robot.
But Sarah Jane's like, I don't care about that shit. Hey, can you sneak us into the SRS meeting? Because that's what I really want to do. But Benton doesn't want to do that for whatever reason. He wants to check in with the doctor first, who is... What's up with the doctor? To get knocked out or something?
He got punched by a robot.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
With his tiny claw hands.
Well, but Sarah Jane leaves with the scientist anyway. And they're going to go do the SRS thing. And we find out that the robot has been stealing atomic missile codes. Oh. And then the doctor is informed that Sarah Jane left with the scientist, and the doctor's like, no, that's bad.
No.
That's my Tom Baker impression.
Spot on.
Nailed it. Because we go to the meeting, and the scientists that are all there are very clearly Nazis. And they reveal the robot. This is our evil weapon. The doctor comes, is trying to sneak his way in. They're like, we need you to empty your pockets or whatever. And he just starts pulling out tons of crazy shit.
This will never not be my favorite gag in Doctor Who.
And he's like, the guy's like, sort of like, get away, we don't want you here. And sort of trying to push him out the door. And he's still doing stuff with his pockets. And the guy trips on his scarf and falls down. And the doctor's like, oh, cool. And then goes into the meeting. I'm not 100% positive he did that on purpose. I think it was just a lucky accident. But the robot, meanwhile, Sarah Jane is hiding in the back listening to all this, and the robot points out Sarah Jane and the intruder. This is bad.
That's actually what he goes, hey, you can't be in here. You have to leave. That's what he sounds like. I'm going to have to get my supervisor. Oh no. I'm in so much trouble.
But the doctor bursts in and distracts by putting on a magic show.
As one does.
And everyone starts laughing immediately. The entire audience. They are down for this shit.
It's their thing.
This has been a very boring science exposition.
This has been one very boring science.
This has not been very good science at all.
The doctor shows up and this is amazing. We haven't seen a show this good since that one guy did that. He didn't say Eureka. He said, I'm a streaker.
I need to leave immediately.
That is a
dialogue from the show.
That is dialogue from the opening of Planet of the Spiders. The doctor and the brig are sitting there in the audience, and the brig just looks at the doctor like, this is what you made me go to?
This is
what you dragged me to? And then some belly dancers come on, and Brig's like, never mind, I like this. I'm down for this. So they're like, the scientists are basically like, we have to kill them. And Hair Scientist is like, oh, okay, I was all for evil plans and stuff, but...
I didn't want anyone to get dead?
Yeah.
Just mildly evil. Not full-on evil. That's too much.
I think what he wanted was a revolution and stuff, but not necessarily a violent revolution.
He thought the revolution would be nice.
He didn't realize that all these people were dicks.
What a bunch of butts.
Which really, the matching uniforms should have given it away.
The armbands were kind of the big tell on that one, I kind of feel.
And but Unit comes in and sort of starts shooting up the place, and shoots the doctor, who pretends to be dead. And he does the classic... I feel like every doctor's done this with oh, I'm dead.
Whee!
But the bad guys, this is where the bad guys kidnap Sarah Jane, and they slowly move towards a truck, load up the robot very slowly, get in and drive away at a reasonable speed. And this is when, so Sullivan calls in, checks in, is like, oh God, by the way, I'm in this. Do you remember me?
By the way, I still exist.
I have to appear in this episode, sir. I'm under contract.
He's like, listen, they're going to this bunker, gets bopped on the head, and is immediately knocked out.
He's like giving his little spiel. He's like, yeah, I think they just kind of forgot about me. I've been walking around here for ages. And I was like, that's exactly what happened.
I will say he had one good line, at least, which is when he's trying to get the doctor at the beginning of the episode, the first episode, and he's like, you need to go back to the sick bay. And he's like, the doctor's like, I'm the doctor. And he's like, you're not the doctor. I'm the doctor. You're going back to bed, young man.
You might be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definitive fuck. I ruined it. The definitive fuck. That's what he says on the episode. It's very avant-garde.
Verbatim. Sullivan tells him they're going to a bunker, and that's all he has time to say because he gets knocked out. And so they're like, well, let's go to a bunker.
Bunker apparently is a regional chain restaurant, kind of like a Denny's. So they all go and they have the grand slams and they have a wonderful time. They actually go during the time when they're doing the promotional meal for the Hobbit movies. So, they get to have like that one ring burger and the Hobbit hash browns. It's all pretty good. It's nice. Good stuff. Great cross promotion.
Yeah, I never got to go to that, so I missed out.
I had a friend who was a huge Lord of the Rings fan steal a menu from a Denny's because they needed it for their collection.
What did they think when the actual Hobbit movies came out?
They love the movies. They're wrong, but they love them.
So they go to the bunker. The scientists attack them. And the scientists call Brig, we have demands. Well, we've actually sent them to these other countries. I don't remember exactly what it was. If you do this thing, or if you don't do this thing, basically, we're gonna blow up everybody.
And they can, because they have the destructor codes
that the robot's been stealing this whole serial.
They basically want the world turned over to them, because they're the smart people who are gonna rule it right.
They're gonna rule it daily and nightly and ever so rightly.
And I will say, in the background of this bunker, there is a giant screen that has the number 300 on it. And I was like, please God, no. Don't do what I think you're going to do.
And they did.
They fucking did.
As soon as that countdown hit 299, Joe just started sobbing.
They said, we got 30 minutes. If only there were already a unit of time that they could count down from 30 to, that they could count in normal, instead of, no, 300 whatevers. We've taken half an hour and we fucking decimalized it. Who does that help? How much time do we have left? 137. What the fuck does that mean? There's no frame. I think that's 15 minutes, but I'm really not sure. What they've done there is 300. They've made a minute 100, whatever the fuck that is long. And nobody needs that.
We don't need countdowns, period, to be honest.
We certainly don't need countdowns that start in the triple digits.
We don't need countdowns, period. We don't like countdowns where we come from. Get out of here with y'all ticking clock bullshit.
You've just nailed like 30% of my neighbors.
Yeah, I'm actually your neighbor. Bang on the wall, I'll bang back.
Hi!
Hey, what's up?
Why aren't you in the same room as us?
I don't like you.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Plus, your place has that weird funk.
That is
Whoa,
true.
that's a rude thing to call Toni.
But accurate. No, because now Toni can say, I'm funky.
I will not.
I'm a funky robot. They take care of the machine gun nests at the bunker, and the Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver, which I was just playing with, to detonate the mines that are kind of at the front of the situation. So Winters...
Who's Winters?
Winters is one of the people. Miss Winters, yeah. She's in charge of the cult, the sexy robot cult.
The Doctor's sonic burns through a door, but they don't really go through the door. They finish burning through it, and the door opens with the robot.
So Winters sends out K1, and K1 has a disintegrator gun, which is very clearly not properly affixed to the suit because it's bent downwards. This whole thing does not work.
But he disintegrates a unit soldier with it.
And also a very real and not at all, like, toy tank. It's definitely a real tank. It's not a toy tank that's been put very close to the camera.
I swear the sound that it makes when it comes in is like a small child going, "Arr, arr."
And this very intensely real tank is the cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's kind of a lame, like, here's a toy, bye. Like, that's, I'm looking at that cliffhanger now. So the robot comes out with his bent gun. How did they think that gun was gonna stay put? You've got it, put in one of, like, the shark things. The wrist is bending downwards because of the... And I like that when he shoots, because I'm watching this now, when the robot shoots the soldiers with the disintegrator gun, the soldier falls over dead and then his corpse disintegrates. He is not disintegrated in that moment. And then here's the tank. I'm looking at this tank now. This is beautiful. They're trying so hard.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's adorable that they tried, though.
And then the toy tank is vaporized. They tried so hard, and that's the cliffhanger. Is the robot saying, look what I did to that real tank. You guys are all gonna die now. Cliffhanger.
That's the end of episode 3, and we're now to episode 4, which I've called Planet of Robo-Giants.
I would like to prefer... I'm going to call it King Kong Bot.
This is when it goes full-on King Kong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this serial is a very loose adaptation of King Kong.
Who wrote this? Dix? Terrence Dix, right?
This is T-Dick, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely said that he was inspired by King Kong.
If you watch him in the interviews, he talks a bit like this, you see. And what we did with this one is we wanted it to be, we were doing King Kong, you see. I invented this tradition that the outgoing script editor had to write the first serial for the new Doctor, you see. So that was very much...
That's not really what he sounds like, but it's kind of in that ballpark.
It really is. I've heard it. That's pretty good. The UC is definitely selling it.
He was at Galley, I think, last year or the year before.
Oh, I just kind of assumed he was dead.
I don't know why that's funny.
Jesus!
I don't know. I just thought he was dead.
He worked on Doctor Who during the 60s. It's not unlikely that he might be dead now.
I know a lot of people from the 60s who are dead. I have friends from the 60s who are dead.
Kettlewell tries to stop the countdown.
Kettlewell, that's the scientist, right? Oh, Sarah Jane and Harry, they have been put in the same little cell together. They work on their restraints to get out, which they could have used Jo. She's
got a degree in that shit.
In escapology.
Yeah, but she lives in an island now, or whatever the hell is happening at this point in her personal canon.
The Doctor has to sort of reiterate how terrifying this robot is and its bent gun. He says that the robot's gun can put a hole in the moon. I don't buy that. He's just going to spell his name.
That's a weird metric as well. How powerful is his gun? Well, it can put a hole in the moon. That's useless information to me. That's like a countdown clock that counts down from 300. What are you doing? How is that information even... Could put a hole in the moon? I'm not on the moon. I'm here. What will it do to me now? Oh, I'll fall over and then disappear. Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that information.
But yeah, hair guy... Kettlewell stops the countdown, and they all go outside and see the robot. Sarah Jane tries to talk some sense into the robot, and the robot shoots Kettlewell and disintegrates him. Again, very slowly. He just holds this face for like 10 seconds and fades away.
It's like what? It's like they said. All right, okay. All right, hold it there, Ed. Just for a minute. We're gonna do the fade out, but we need you to hold that position. Hold it. Don't do any acting. Just stand perfectly still. You're doing great, Ed. You're doing a really good job. Give it just a minute. And okay, now you can move. Now come out of the scene, and we're gonna shoot the blank plate behind you that we're gonna fade into. All right, lovely, Ed. And that's a wrap on Ed, everyone. Did a really good job. Congratulations, Ed. We're done with you. You're dead, and you're never coming back. Goodbye.
I legitimately had like a shocked reaction when it happened. I was like, oh no. And then I was like,
dead.
But by the end of him being dead, I was laughing.
It's a very sudden emotional thing that because of the way they've chosen to represent the vaporization effect of the disintegrator ray, it becomes funny. It just doesn't work.
And then the robot's reaction also doesn't work because it's taken so long. Because the robot's like, oh no, I did a bad. And is so upset about it, He just falls down.
He goes, "Oh, I have killed the one who created me," which is a really, really long-winded and pompous way of saying, "Oh no, I killed me dad," which he could have said instead.
In that exact voice, preferably.
He could have just gone, "Oh, daddy." That would have been preferable.
But, like, that's basically how they've, like, beaten the robot at this point. Like, Benton takes the gun, and they all go in, to the bunker, because, the woman, what Winters has restarted the countdown. And, like, Sarah Jane pulls a gun on her, too. And is like, don't do that.
Excuse me, please stop.
Hashtag don't do that.
Don't do a bad, do a good instead. It's better. So, but they get her out of the seat, and the doctor goes to work on the computers, and is just like, do, and, like, stops the countdown at, like, 3 seconds. Don't they just generally stop it at 1 so there's more attention? But they did, like, this, like, zoom in on the countdown.
Every time it went, they zoomed into it.
I would, like, reset the countdown. Does he do that? I don't know.
It gets down to 3, and then they go... they go back and go to start it again, and it doesn't start from 3, it does start back over at 300.
Okay. But the robot comes back inside and basically kidnaps Sarah Jane. Because the robot's like, listen.
You're my mom now.
I love you, Sarah Jane. You're great. Everyone else? Dicks. They're a threat to humanity, so they must be destroyed. He's going to destroy humanity because they're threatening humanity.
I do want to remind you that we might get in trouble for you quoting the script word for word like that, so I don't want this podcast to get like a DMCA copyright takedown notice, so just...
I'll just speed it up slightly and flip the image. But yeah, he's going to kill everybody except for Sarah Jane, because he's got a robo-boner for Sarah Jane.
A roboner, if you will.
I will not. That's a line I've stolen from you. You say that all the time. I will not.
Well, sure.
I'm pretty sure that was in our vows.
Vows?
Vows. VOWS. Vows.
You got there.
So Benton's like, oh, hey, the scientist casually mentioned a while back that there's this metal virus. The doctor and Harry leave in Bessie to go figure out this metal virus.
I like how quickly you can do a science in Doctor Who.
It takes as long as the plot demands.
The robot restarts the countdown, and Sarah Jane tries to talk him out of it. After the robot shoves down Sarah Jane down to the ground, rude. And the robot's like, humanity sucks, I'm gonna make more robots. Because I got living metal, I can just pop a limb off and grow a new one.
Ew.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it works.
Again, word for word from the script, we are going to get in trouble.
My next note just says, Brig calls Doctor Oedipus. I don't know exactly what I meant by that.
The Brig calls the doctor to tell him what's going on, and the doctor says that the robot has an Oedipus complex.
How does the robot have an Oedipus complex?
Because he killed his dad.
It killed the father, and now it's in love with Sarah Jane, who's his mother.
Yeah, why not? That scans.
So, but the countdown doesn't go down again because there was a failsafe. Because I think maybe the doctor put that in there. So that was unimportant.
Yay.
Briggs shoots the robot with the disintegrator.
That backfires spectacularly.
Yeah, it makes him grow bigger.
Does it?
Okay.
Or is it the best thing to happen in this whole serial?
As much as Toni loves robots is also as much as he loves things out of scale.
So this is perfect for like the dumb toy tank and this were the highlights for you, I'm sure.
Delightful.
He grows gigantic. And he picks up Sarah Jane, because King Kong. I gotta say, when he picked her up, that wasn't a bad effect.
No.
For what they had to hand, yeah, that effect worked surprisingly well. Less convincing was the shot of the robot walking through the town with Sarah Jane in his hand, where you can basically tell it's obviously a doll.
Also, it has no shadow.
The robot?
The robot.
It walking away with Sarah Jane is basically the guy in the robot suit walking in place, and the green screen footage just like panning to the right.
But he does a good little rampage there. He steps on some unit people, smushes them. He kicks a house down.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? I would.
And then the Doctor and Harry show up with their newfound metal virus in a bucket. They quote Alice in Wonderland for no real reason, just because you gotta.
Oh, it's tearing sticks.
Also, the robot walks into some power lines, because he's a dumb robot and doesn't know what they are.
They shoot the robot a bunch. There's a lot of shots of the of Unit attacking the robot, and some of the I will point out some of the CSO on these shots don't quite work because you've got the robot in a studio with reflective metal exterior reflecting the CSO screen around him. So there are times when the robot is kind of semi-transparent where you can see through bits of him.
I think there's like full-on shots where the robot just doesn't have legs.
Again, it's 70s era, like the equivalent of green screen at the time. It's called CSO.
Which stands for color separation overlay, for those of you who don't know.
Son of a bitch.
It's the reason that the John Pertwee's Whomobile appears yellow in that one shot where it's flying, because it's literally reflecting the yellow screen that they were using. My favourite thing about this, because I'm literally watching it now, is because of the way they've done the robot's like gigantic effect, his size is so inconsistent from moment to moment. It's brilliant.
Well, maybe it's because he's still growing.
He's a growing boy.
Not quite a man, but one day. The robot sets Sarah Jane down on a house so that she doesn't get all shot up, I guess. Which is just also conveniently so Benton can go rescue her. The doctor dunks the robot in the foam, in the bucket. The red foam in the bucket. And the doctor is so happy about it. Like, they drive back they're in Bessie, and he's just like doing a victory pose with the bucket.
Yeah, but then the robot dies.
The robot shrinks.
He shrinks, and I was like, he's gonna get so small. He's gonna get so small.
The moment where where they're in Bessie driving towards the robot, where the robot has been layered onto the shot, the doctor's arm and the bucket disappear under the robot, which is supposed to be in the distance. It's pretty great. Like, I'm looking at it right now, there he goes, and there's the bucket, goodbye. Goodbye, bucket.
There's also a bit where he's standing up when Bessie takes off, and he wobbles and falls down, and almost loses the whole bucket.
Okay, so yeah, the robot starts shrinking, and then he's smaller than he was before. They like walk up to him, and he's very tiny.
It was great, but then he
melts.
dies.
He falls over backwards. And can I say, the shot of him falling over backwards, there's very clearly a person in, I guess, maybe like a yellow suit helping to lower the robot down, because he doesn't just go ka-thunk. He's gently falling backwards. And then he shrinks and disintegrates, and it's very sad.
Toni was very upset. So is Sarah Jane.
It wasn't the robot's fault.
Or did I?
We jump forward a little bit and back in the unit lab, and Sarah Jane's upset about it. And the fourth doctor,
we jump forward a whole bunch. That's 7 seasons.
But the fourth doctor does the thing.
He offers her a jelly baby.
Which is actually a callback and not really an establishing of a thing, because the second doctor has done it twice before.
Yeah, the second doctor infrequently ate jelly babies.
It is weird that it's such like a thing associated with
4
when it is a callback.
I mean, they did it in this serial, I guess, as kind of they did a couple of nods to previous Doctors, but it becomes so intrinsically linked with the fourth Doctor in this serial, and then it pops up more in future stories. Like, it's not just that the fourth Doctor is eating jelly babies here. You will see the jelly babies as a plot device in future episodes. Not even kidding.
I remember when 2 did it in the 3 Doctors, and I was just like, it feels weird, because it feels like a call forward almost.
It's like Tom Baker should leading and say, hey, that's my thing in 2 years. So he tries to karate chop the brick to show how strong and sturdy he is, and then he can't karate chop the brick now. And we have a retconned explanation for why that is in Let's Kill Hitler, some years later. Several years later, in fact. Well, it's not just Let's Kill Hitler, it's also, I think the Christmas Invasion touches upon this, where there's, for the first 15 hours after a regeneration, a Time Lord's body is kind of bristling with energy, and so it makes sense why he would be a little bit more manic and why he was able to judo chop the brick earlier. Also, he did a bunch of coke between scenes where we didn't see it.
Oh, is that the thing that leads into the dumb hand thing?
Yes. And it's not dumb, it's brilliant.
Is it?
It's not the dumbest thing that happens in that episode.
No, that's the weird button on the side of the ship that just causes part of the ship to fall away. So Sarah Jane is sad, and the doctor talks to Sarah Jane about it and is like, "Hey, I know what'll cheer you up. Let's go for a trip in the TARDIS.
Let's kidnap Harry Sullivan." Which, in fairness, they do.
Harry comes in basically just to go, this is all silly. It's too silly. And they're like, we're going to get in this police box and teleport out of here. And he's like, that's bullshit. And they're like, oh, really? Get in. And so he does. And you just hear him inside go, huh.
He goes, holy shit.
Fuck you guys. It's
real
cold
big
in
in
here. And they TARDIS out.
TARDIS out!
And the brig walks in like, fucking hell, he did it again.
Never gonna see the motherfucker again.
You bastard! You kidnapped my top doctor and a journalist.
But he's basically like, oh well. And that's the end of Robot. So we are going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for our final thoughts.
Hello, Marvel Universe! The Earth Station MCU podcast is your home for all things related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Join our debrief as we discuss Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, upcoming and past favorite Marvel movies, cosplay, comics history, toys, games, interviews, and all things MCU. Whether you're a hero or a villain, a new viewer, or have been reading comics since you were a kid, there's something for you on Earth Station MCU.
And we're back!
Would you like to do final thoughts?
Oh yeah, let's do final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Robot is the serial I watched the most as a child. I literally wore out our VHS cassette tape of that serial as a kid. I can't separate the emotion I have associated with it with the story itself. As a story, it's not a great debut. Well, it's not necessarily a strong story as a debut. It's a very strong story in terms of here's who the new Doctor is. It does a very good job of showcasing Tom Baker at some of his Tom Bakeriest. The story is kind of weak, but no weaker than any other Doctor debut stories. Power of the Daleks has pacing issues, and Spearhead from Space is incredibly tedious. But as a debut for a new incoming Doctor, it's the best we've had so far. It's fun, it has an interesting story, it plays with viewer expectations a little bit, especially with like the stuff in the first episode where you expect the leader of the think tank to be the dude, and it's the women are in charge, what a world we live in. And there's some fun character moments, and this episode does a lot to establish who the fourth Doctor is, and some of that's intentional, some of it is, Terrence Dicks just saying, well, if they don't like it, if it doesn't work, they can blame it on the regeneration and tone him down in future episodes, and if anything, they crank him up, because if that's the one thing Tom Baker needs, it's to be cranked up. But I loved it. Like, I used to watch this tape so much as a kid. I know huge scenes of this. This is probably the classic Doctor serial I'm more familiar with than any other because of how much I watched it as a kid. So I have very fond memories of it. It's one of my personal favourites. I'd put it in top 10 for me. Rewatching it as an adult, the visual effects don't age well, but it's also 70s era Doctor Who, so that was never going to be the case. I love it. I think it's great. It's one of my favourites.
I think that it's a really good introduction to the fourth Doctor, who I am very excited to finally get to. I wouldn't say that this is one of my favorite stories ever, but that's okay. They can't all be. They can't all be favorites. There's a lot of really good stuff there. I would have said that, I don't think that this serial does a good job of establishing, Harry Sullivan as a character, although I've been led to believe that that just is a thing that doesn't happen.
It doesn't do a good job of establishing Harry Sullivan as a person we will remember at any point in the future. He's just kind of there.
To the point where when he, gets on the TARDIS, if I hadn't known, if I hadn't heard his name before, I'd be like, oh, this guy, we're keeping this one?
Oh, he gets to go in. He gets to go in. He gets to go. He's in there now, and he's with you. He does this. He just stepped into the TARDIS, and I forgot he existed.
I would have been if I didn't know that Harry Sullivan was going to be a thing, I would have been just who's this random guy just walking onto the TARDIS here at the very end of the serial?
You wouldn't have been paying attention enough to even know who he was.
Yeah.
Do you have any feelings that somebody from UNIT got onto the TARDIS and is going to go on adventures, and it's not Benton?
I am pissed. I'm so angry.
That's an acceptable emotional state to be in.
Man, Benton going full on companion in the top. Oh, where's that? I want that.
Do you feel slighted?
I do. Do you have any more final thoughts, Toni?
Yeah, I was very excited. I think I had said in an episode or two back that I was it's been a while since I've had a good shitty robot. So I was happy for that.
It this played to a lot of your
yeah, and the
favorites.
Robot got really big, which is
then really small.
I couldn't ask for more than that.
It's like they thought, what is Tony Heath going to enjoy many decades from now?
I swear to God, it's happened multiple times.
I mean, when we first watched Planet of Giants,
I know you were so happy the whole time.
And Ian gets inside a matchbox during it. I think I stopped breathing.
I have to ask, how do you feel about Borrowers?
Borrowers is one of my favorite books as a child. I kind of remember the movie, but Borrowers were my favorite books.
You need to have a conversation with Molly, who I do the Life Toyetic with, because she's very pro-borrower, very pro-small people living in things.
The best thing about the Borrower is that they use different things to build stuff out of, and so there's like a little matchbox, but it's actually like a bed, and that's the best.
If we ever do a crossover between your podcast and ours, it would probably have to be for K9 and Company, because that spin-off exists because kids loved K9, so it was like, what can we put him in now? He's not in Doctor Who anymore, so we can keep selling toys. I feel like that's a good crossover. That gives you and Molly an opportunity to discuss tiny people.
Oh man, I had a dollhouse, not as like a kid, but like my sister had like this really big dollhouse that our neighbor just gave us. I don't know, it was weird, but it was like very detailed and stuff, and I had it at the same time that I read The Borrowers, and I was like, they could live here. I'll set it up real nice. I've got working electronics.
You're so cute. But my final thoughts. I liked it. I was super excited to see I've been excited to get to the Fourth Doctor. And now that we're here, I'm even more excited because it's just as good as I thought it was going to be. I love 3. I think he's great. But I felt like he was too typical action hero, like James Bondy sort of thing. And I've been wanting that, like, weird, funny alien vibe. And we have it now. Like, even more so, I think, than 1 and 2. So I'm very, very excited about that. I'm very happy about it. Yeah, the story itself is whatever. There's a shitty robot, and that's fun. Harry Sullivan is basically non-existent, but everything else is like, it's fun. It's just super fun. I'm a little sad that we're gonna be, ditching Unit. Not terribly sad, but I'll miss the Brig, and I'll miss Fenton. But I'm excited to see where we go. I've heard that this sort of era of Doctor Who gets a little more weird and experimental and
I'm so
bonkers,
for that.
and I'm so interested in that.
That's always when Doctor Who is, to me, the most interesting, where it's just like doing something odd just because it can.
And I feel like this serial set up what we're going to be going on to, so I'm excited. So, Ben, you got any plugs?
I have several. Firstly, do please listen to my podcast, The Life Toyetic with Ben and Molly, which I co-host with my good friend Molly Alice Hoy. We watch a movie that exists to promote a toy or a video game, anything with a toyetic properties where you see stuff in that and you think that would make a good toy, and then it's because they've made a toy of it. So we've done the DreamWorks Trolls movie, we did the Masters of the Universe movie, we did the Super Mario Brothers movie, and we're going to be doing a bunch of Barbie movies because Molly genuinely, unironically loves them.
There's so many of them.
There's like 80,000 of them. That's an exaggeration. It's about 50,000. And as well as that, if you are going to be at PAX East at the beginning of April, I will be doing a 1-hour talk about video game ports called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Video Game Ports, probably at 2 p.m. on the Sunday in whatever theatre they have me in. I can't remember what theatre they've got me in right now. It's a combo of 1-hour stand-up special and a PowerPoint presentation about video game ports and the history of video game ports and why they're not as much of a thing now, but they were very much a thing in the 80s and early 90s.
I didn't know you were into video game ports.
Yeah, I do a YouTube series called Port Center, where I talk about interesting, unique ports, conversions, and re-releases of old video games. You can find that at the YouTube channel Filmjoy, which is youtube.com/Filmjoy, where I also do a show called The Antiquing Hour with Mikey Newman of Movies with Mikey fame, where I play an old game, and we chat, and he tries to distract me while I'm playing it. Past episodes have included things like Star Wars Dark Forces, Civilization, The Sims 2, Sonic 3D Blast, which is a horrible, horrible game, Earthworm Jim 3D. We have a lot of fun. We generally go for like 90 minutes. We went 2 hours once while I was playing Simon the Sorcerer. And it's just a fun show. It's fun to do. We do that weekly. Yeah, youtube.com/Filmjoy.
Anything else?
I will be at your local Barnes & Noble signing books from 8 a.m. right up until security asks me to leave.
That reminds me, I might be doing a Barnes & Noble signing at some point. I'm just going to plug that again real quick. Please buy The Princess and the Pterodactyls by J.B. Hivemind. It's technically pronounced Hivemind, but it's spelled Hivemind. You can go to jbhivemind.com for links to purchase the book. It's a book that is written by myself, Ray Friesen, and Vincent E. L., both previous guests of the podcast. And we alternated chapters and wrote this weird fantasy, sci-fi, meta, crazy story. So please go check that out at jbhivemind.com. And if you like this episode, you can check out more on watch-a-rassilon.com. And be sure to rate and comment